The barn door was barely cracked open when Zane Foster first noticed the smell of fear mixed with hay dust. But he said nothing and went about his morning chores, as if the world had not just shifted on its axis. He had returned from checking his fence line at dawn to find the smallest signs of intrusion. A smudge of mud near the ladder to the hayloft that his boots had not made, a few strands of dark hair caught on rough wood, and the unmistakable sense that something living and terrified was holding its breath somewhere above his head. Zane was a man who had spent 5 years as a scout on the borderlands before a Caldrith arrow through his thigh had sent him home to take over his late father's farm. He knew when he was being watched, and he knew the particular quality of desperate silence that came from someone who believed their life depended on remaining hidden. He also knew, from the size of the muddy print and the faint green tinge to a spot of what might have been blood on the barn floor, that his unexpected guest was an orc. Most men in the valley would have grabbed a pitchfork and routed out the intruder immediately, probably with the help of neighbors and dogs. Most men would have assumed the worst, that this was a scout for a raiding party or a spy sent to learn the weaknesses of the settlement. But Zane had seen enough of war to know that soldiers did not hide in barns and tremble. Soldiers did not leave trails of fear, sweat that spoke of blind panic and exhaustion. Whatever was in his hayloft, it was not there to hurt him, so he did what he always did on a spring morning. He mucked out the stalls where his 2 plow horses stamped and snorted. He checked the chickens for eggs. He repaired a loose board on the paddock fence, and he made sure to whistle while he worked so that his guest would know exactly where he was at all times. When he left the barn 2 hours later, he left behind a half loaf of yesterday's bread, a wedge of hard cheese, and a canteen of fresh water on a barrel just inside the door, placed with the casual air of a man who had simply forgotten them there. The food was gone when he returned that evening to feed the horses. Zane said nothing. He brought more water, refilled the canteen, and left a bowl of the stew he had made for himself, still warm. This time he also left a thick wool blanket, folded neatly, because spring nights in the valley could still bite with cold, and he had heard no sound of movement from above that might indicate his guest was warm enough. This routine continued for 3 days. Each morning and evening, Zane would enter the barn, make enough noise to announce his presence, complete his work, and leave food and water in the same spot. Each time he returned, the offerings were gone and the canteen refilled from his well when he was in the house or the fields. His guest was clever enough to move only when he was far away, and careful enough to leave almost no trace. On the 4th morning, Zane left a piece of paper weighted down with a stone next to the bread and apples. On it, he had written in his careful script, "You are safe here. No one else comes to this farm. Take what you need." When he returned that evening, the paper was gone, but in its place was a different scrap, torn from what looked like the edge of a woven bag. The charcoal writing was shaky but clear. "Thank you." Something in Zane's chest tightened at those 2 words. He sat on a barrel in the gathering dusk, staring up at the loft where he knew she was hiding, and spoke into the dimness. "I am going to leave supper here as usual. There is also a shirt and some soap. The water in the trough outside is clean if you want to wash. I will not come back until morning." He did not expect an answer and did not receive one, but when he returned the next dawn, the soap had been used and the shirt was gone. In its place was another note. "Why are you helping me?" Zane took his time answering. He did his morning work slowly, thinking through his words, and then he wrote on a fresh piece of paper, "Because you needed help. Because I think you are running from something. Because everyone deserves a chance to catch their breath. You can stay as long as you need to." This exchange of notes continued for the next 2 days. Zane learned that his guest could read and write better than many humans he knew. He learned that she was frightened of being found, that she was deeply suspicious of his kindness, and that she was trying to decide whether to keep running or to risk trusting him. He told her about the farm, about the fact that he lived alone and rarely had visitors, about the fact that the nearest neighbor was 3 miles down the valley road and minded their own business. On the 7th morning, Zane entered the barn to find a figure sitting on a barrel near where he always left the food. She was wrapped in the blanket he had provided, and in the early light filtering through the gaps in the barn walls, her green skin seemed to glow faintly. She was younger than he had expected, perhaps in her early 20s, with black hair that fell in a thick braid over one shoulder and small tusks that curved up from her lower jaw. Her eyes were a startling amber color, and they watched him with a mixture of defiance and fear that reminded him of a cornered fox. "I thought it was time to stop hiding," she said. Her voice was lower than he had expected, slightly rough, as if she had not used it much in recent days. "You have fed me for a week. You have been kind. I owe you the truth of what I am." Zane set down the basket he was carrying, making sure to move slowly. "I have known what you are since the first day. It did not change anything then. It does not change anything now." She stared at him. "You knew. And you still helped me." "Yes." "Why?" The word came out almost accusatory. "Humans do not help orcs. Humans kill orcs. Humans think we are monsters." "Some humans think that," Zane agreed. He leaned against the wall, keeping distance between them so she would not feel trapped. "I am not one of them. I have fought beside orcs and against them. I have seen good people and bad people in every race. What I saw in my barn was someone who needed help, and I happened to have help to give." She pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "You were a soldier. Scout. 5 years on the border. I am done with that now." He gestured to his leg where the old injury still made him limp on cold mornings. "This place is quieter. The border wars." Her expression shifted, became more complicated. "I lost my brother in those. I am sorry." And he was. He had seen too many bodies on both sides, too many young people who had died for reasons that seemed increasingly pointless the longer the fighting went on. She nodded slowly. "His name was Grath. He was trying to protect our village from a human raid. The humans said we had stolen cattle. We had not." Zane did not try to defend actions he had not been part of and could not justify. "There were people on both sides who did terrible things. There still are." "Yes." She studied him for a long moment. "My name is Keira. Zane Foster." He paused. "Do you want to tell me what you are running from, Keira? You do not have to, but if there is something I should know, some danger coming this way, I would rather be prepared." Keira's jaw tightened. "I was supposed to be married 3 weeks ago, to the son of the chieftain of the next clan over. It was arranged when I was a child to seal an alliance between our peoples. I take it you did not want this marriage." "I did not know I did not want it until I met him." Her hands clenched on the blanket. "Garak is his name. He is strong and powerful and has killed many enemies. Everyone said I should be honored, but he is also cruel. I saw how he treated his servants, his animals, even his own family. I saw him beat a child for spilling his drink. When I objected, he laughed and said I would learn to keep silent once I was his wife." Zane felt a cold anger settling into his bones. "So you ran." "The night before the wedding. I took only what I could carry and I ran. I knew he would hunt me. I knew my own family would help him, because to break the alliance would mean war between the clans." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I have been running for 3 weeks, hiding in the woods, stealing food where I could, staying away from roads and villages. I saw your farm and your barn and I was so tired. I thought I would rest for one night and then keep moving. But then you left food. And you kept leaving food. and I thought perhaps I could stay just a little longer." "You can stay as long as you need to," Zane said firmly. "This farm is isolated enough that unless someone is specifically tracking you here, they are unlikely to find you by accident. And if anyone does come looking, I have ways to make them think twice about searching the property." Keira shook her head. "You do not understand what you are offering. If Garak finds me here, he will kill you. He will kill anyone who has helped me. He believes I am his property." "He can believe whatever he wants. You are not property. You are a person who made a choice about your own life." Zane straightened. "I have faced down raiding parties and predators and a winter that killed half the valley's livestock. I am not going to be frightened off by one violent man with an inflated sense of ownership." For the first time, something that might have been the beginning of a smile touched Keira's face. "You are either very brave or very foolish." "I have been told I am both." He gestured to the basket. "I brought breakfast. Fresh bread, eggs, bacon. You must be tired of cold food." "I am tired of many things." But she moved toward the basket, and Zane saw how thin she had become, how her clothes hung loose on her frame. 3 weeks of running and hiding had worn her down to almost nothing. "Come up to the house," he said impulsively. "You can eat a hot meal at a table, use the washroom properly, sleep in a real bed instead of a hayloft." Keira froze. "That is too much, I cannot." "Why not?" "Because I am an orc." "Because if anyone sees me in your house, they will think you are harboring an enemy. Because I have already put you at too much risk. The nearest neighbor is 3 miles away and he has not visited in 6 months. No one comes here unexpectedly, and I am not interested in what people might think." Zane picked up the basket. "You have been hiding for a week. You have been running for 3 weeks before that. You are exhausted and underfed and you need proper rest. Let me help you." She stared at him with those amber eyes, and he could see her warring with herself. Finally, she said, "Why? Why do you care what happens to me? You do not know me." "Because it is the right thing to do." Zane met her gaze steadily. "Because I have seen what happens when people stop caring about each other, when we divide the world into us and them, and decide that some people do not deserve basic kindness. I did not like the person I was becoming when I thought that way, so I choose differently now." Keira wrapped the blanket tighter, but she stood up. "If I do this, if I trust you and you betray me—" "I will not betray you. You have my word. The word of a human to an orc." Her voice was bitter. The word of one person to another. Zane held out his hand, not to take hers, but simply as a gesture of offering, of invitation. "You do not have to take it. You can go back to the loft, and I will go back to leaving food for you, and nothing has to change. But if you want something more than hiding, the option is there." For a long moment, Keira did not move. Then, slowly, she reached out and took his hand. Her grip was strong, her palm calloused from work and travel. Zane felt the warmth of her skin and the slight tremor that said she was still afraid, still uncertain, but willing to try. "Just for today," she said. "I will see what kind of man you are when I am not hidden away. That is all I ask." He led her out of the barn and across the yard to the farmhouse. It was a simple building, 2 stories of weathered wood with a stone chimney and windows that looked out over the fields and forest beyond. Inside, it was clean but sparse, decorated with the practicality of a man who lived alone and did not see the point of excess. The main room held a fireplace, a table with 4 chairs, a comfortable armchair near the hearth, and shelves lined with books. A kitchen area occupied one corner and stairs led up to the bedrooms above. Keira stopped just inside the door, looking around with obvious surprise. "You have books. I like to read. It passes the winter evenings." Zane set the basket on the table and began unpacking it. "Sit. I will make tea." She sat cautiously, perched on the edge of a chair as if ready to bolt at any moment. But as Zane moved around the kitchen, building up the fire in the stove and setting water to boil, she began to relax incrementally. He cooked the eggs and bacon, toasted the bread, and laid it all out on 2 plates. When he set one in front of her, she stared at it as if it were a foreign object. "Eat," he said gently. "You need your strength." Keira picked up the fork, and for the next several minutes the only sound in the kitchen was the clink of utensils and the crackle of the fire. Zane ate his own breakfast slowly, watching her from the corner of his eye. She ate like someone who had forgotten what it was like to have enough, savoring each bite but also eating quickly as if the food might be taken away. When she finally set down her fork, there were tears in her eyes. I had forgotten what this felt like, being warm and safe and full. "You can feel that way every day for as long as you are here." Zane poured tea into 2 cups and pushed one toward her. "I know you said just for today, but the offer stands. You can stay. Work the farm with me if you want to feel useful, or simply rest if you need to recover. I will not push you either way." Keira wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "You barely know me. I could be lying about everything. I could be dangerous. Are you? No, but you should not trust me so easily. I am a good judge of character. It kept me alive on the border." Zane sipped his tea. "Besides, I do not think someone who is dangerous would have hidden in a hayloft and tried to leave no trace of their presence. Dangerous people tend to be more bold about it." A huff of sound that might have been a laugh escaped her. "You have a strange way of looking at the world." "I have been told that too," he smiled. "The washroom is through that door if you want to clean up. There is a tub, hot water soap. Take your time. I need to go work the fields for a few hours, but I will be back at midday." Keira looked toward the door he had indicated, and he saw the longing in her face. "A real bath. As long and hot as you want." Zane stood. "There are clothes in the chest upstairs, 2nd bedroom on the left. They belonged to my sister before she married and moved to the coast. They might fit you. Help yourself to anything you need. Your sister would not mind an orc wearing her clothes. My sister believes that people should be judged by their actions, not their race. She would be angry with me if I did not offer them." He carried his plate to the wash basin. "I will see you at midday, Keira. Make yourself at home." He left before she could argue, heading out to the fields where the spring planting was still in progress. The work was hard and physical, requiring his full attention, but his mind kept drifting back to the farmhouse and the orc woman he had left inside. He had told her the truth when he said he was a good judge of character. Everything about Keira spoke of someone who had been pushed beyond endurance, who had made an impossibly brave choice to flee rather than submit to a life of cruelty. He respected that kind of courage. He also could not deny that there was something compelling about her beyond the circumstances of her arrival. In the brief time they had spoken in the barn and the kitchen, he had seen intelligence, wariness, strength, and a dry humor that suggested she had not always been running in fear. He found himself wanting to know more, wanting to see what she was like when she was not exhausted and terrified. When he returned to the farmhouse at midday, he found Keira sitting in the armchair by the fire, wrapped in one of his sister's dresses and with her hair still damp from the bath. She looked transformed, no longer the ragged fugitive who had emerged from the hayloft, but a young woman with clear skin and bright eyes. She was reading one of his books, her expression absorbed, and she did not notice him enter until he was halfway across the room. She looked up, startled, and he saw a flash of embarrassment cross her face. "I hope you do not mind. I finished bathing and I saw the books and I thought. I told you to make yourself at home. That includes the books." Zane moved to the kitchen to prepare lunch. "Find anything interesting?" "A history of the coastal kingdoms. I have never been to the coast." She closed the book carefully. "I have never been much of anywhere, really. My village is in the northern mountains. It is isolated. We trade with neighboring clans but rarely travel farther than that. You miss it. Your village? Keira was silent for a moment. I miss my mother. I miss my younger siblings. I do not miss the constraints, the expectations. I was raised to believe that my worth was in the alliance I could bring to the clan, in the children I would bear. No one ever asked what I wanted. What do you want? Zane asked. She looked at him as if no one had ever posed that question before. I do not know. Freedom, I suppose, the chance to make my own choices, to live without fear. Her voice dropped. I want what you have, this place, this peace. It is not always peaceful. Winters are hard and the work is endless. There are predators in the forest and storms that can destroy a season's crop. But it is mine and I answer to no one. He paused. You could have something like it if you wanted. Not here necessarily, but somewhere. Once you are safe, once you have rested and healed, you could go wherever you choose. If I am ever safe. Keira set the book aside. Garak will not stop hunting me. He sees my escape as a personal insult, and my family's honor demands that I be returned. Even if I run to the other side of the world, they will keep looking. Then we will make sure they do not find you here. Zane brought over 2 bowls of soup and a loaf of bread. Eat. Then, if you are feeling up to it, I could use help in the garden this afternoon. The weeding is endless. Keira accepted the bowl. You would trust me to work beside you. Why would I not? Because I am stronger than you, because I could overpower you if I chose, because you should be afraid of me. Zane met her eyes. Are you planning to overpower me? No. Then I have nothing to be afraid of. He dipped his bread in the soup. Besides, if you wanted to hurt me, you have had ample opportunity. You know where I sleep, where I work when I am distracted. The fact that you have done nothing but hide and accept the help I offered tells me everything I need to know about your intentions. Keira shook her head slowly. You are a strange man, Zane Foster. So I have been told. They ate in comfortable silence, and then Zane led her out to the garden behind the house. It was a large plot, carefully tended with rows of spring vegetables already beginning to sprout. He handed her a hoe and showed her which plants were weeds and which were crops, and then they worked side by side in the warm afternoon sun. Keira was a quick learner and a tireless worker. Her strength meant she could clear twice the rows Zane could in the same time, and she seemed to take satisfaction in the physical labor. As they worked, they talked in fits and starts, sharing small pieces of their lives. Zane told her about growing up on the farm, about his father's death and his decision to enlist, about the years on the border that had taught him both the cost of violence and the value of peace. Keira told him about her childhood in the mountains, about learning to hunt and track from her brother, about the strict hierarchy of orc clans and the way women were valued primarily for the alliances they could forge. It is not that way in all clans, she said, as she pulled up a stubborn weed. Some are more progressive, some allow women to be warriors or leaders, but my clan is old-fashioned, traditional. Change comes slowly if at all, and you wanted change. I wanted a voice. I wanted to be seen as more than a piece of property to be traded away. She paused, leaning on her hoe. When I was young, I thought I could accept it. I thought marriage was just something that happened, and I would make the best of it. But as I grew older, I saw what it meant. I saw women who had no say in their own lives, who were beaten or ignored or treated as less than human. And I realized I could not do it. I could not give up everything I was for the sake of tradition. So you ran. So I ran. She looked at him. And I ended up in your barn being fed by a human who should have turned me in but did not. Turning you in was never an option. Zane wiped sweat from his forehead. You were running for your life. I was not going to send you back to the thing you were fleeing. They worked until the sun began to sink toward the horizon, and then they returned to the house. Zane made a simple dinner of roasted chicken and vegetables, and they ate at the table while the light faded outside. Keira was quieter now, thoughtful, and Zane did not push her to fill the silence. When they finished eating, she helped him wash the dishes, and then she stood uncertainly in the middle of the kitchen. "I should go back to the barn," she said. "You could stay in the house. The second bedroom is empty and it has a proper bed." Keira looked torn. That would not be appropriate. An unmarried orc woman and a human man under the same roof. If anyone knew, they would assume. They would assume we are adults capable of treating each other with respect. Zane dried the last plate. "But I will not force you. The barn is there if you prefer it. The bedroom is there if you want it. Choose what makes you comfortable." She hesitated for a long moment, then said quietly, "I will try the bedroom, just for tonight." "Just for tonight," Zane agreed, though he suspected she would not return to the barn once she experienced the comfort of a real bed and the security of solid walls. He showed her upstairs to the room that had been his sister's. It was small but cozy, with a narrow bed, a chest of drawers, and a window that looked out over the fields. Keira stood in the doorway, staring at the room as if it were a palace. "I have not slept in a real bed since I left my village," she said softly. "Then sleep well tonight. I am just across the hall if you need anything." Zane stepped back, giving her space. "Good night, Keira. Good night. And Zane, thank you for everything." He nodded and retreated to his own room, leaving her door open in case she needed reassurance that she was not trapped. He lay awake for a long time, listening to the sounds of the house settling and the distant calls of night birds. At some point, he heard Keira's door close softly, and he finally allowed himself to relax and drift toward sleep. The next morning, he woke to the smell of cooking. Confused, he dressed quickly and headed downstairs to find Keira at the stove, frying eggs and toasting bread. She looked up when he entered, and there was a shy smile on her face. "I thought I should make myself useful. You have done so much for me. The least I can do is help with breakfast." Zane felt warmth spread through his chest. "You did not have to, but I appreciate it." "I wanted to." She plated the food and brought it to the table. "I slept better last night than I have in months. I woke up feeling like perhaps things might be all right after all." They fell into a routine over the following days. Keira stayed in the house, helping with cooking and cleaning and garden work. She was endlessly curious about Zane's life and his farm, asking questions about everything from crop rotation to the history of the valley. Zane, in turn, learned more about orc culture and the complexities of clan politics. He learned that Keira was educated beyond what her village had thought necessary, having taught herself to read from stolen books, and having learned mathematics from a traveling merchant who had been kind enough to give her lessons in secret. "My mother encouraged it," Keira explained one evening as they sat by the fire after dinner. "She could not read herself, but she wanted better for me. She saved coins for years to buy me a primer, and she would cover for me when I snuck away to study. My father did not approve. He thought education would make me difficult, unsuitable for marriage. He was probably right. Education makes people think for themselves. There are always those who see that as a threat." Zane passed her a cup of tea. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "She is. I hope she understands why I left. I hope she is not too angry with me." Keira stared into the fire. "I left her a letter, but I do not know if she received it. I do not know if she was even allowed to read it or if my father destroyed it." "What did you tell her?" "That I loved her. That I could not marry Garak. That I hoped she would forgive me someday." Keira's voice cracked slightly. "I told her I would rather die free than live as a slave to a cruel man." Zane reached over and gently took her hand. It was the first time he had initiated physical contact since she had emerged from the barn, and he felt her stiffen in surprise before gradually relaxing. "You made the right choice. It was a hard choice, but it was right. I tell myself that. But some days, I wonder if I should have just accepted my fate. At least then my family would not be dishonored. At least then there would be no risk of war between the clans. Your family's honor should not depend on your suffering. And any clan that would go to war over a woman's right to choose her own life is not a clan worth preserving." Zane squeezed her hand. "You are not responsible for other people's choices, Keira, only your own, and you chose to live." She looked down at their joined hands, her thumb tracing over his knuckles. "You make it sound simple. It is not simple, but it is true." They sat like that for a long time, hands linked, watching the fire burn low. When Keira finally went up to bed, Zane remained in his chair, thinking about the way she had leaned into his touch, the trust that was slowly building between them. He knew it was dangerous to let himself care too much. She was here temporarily, healing and recovering before she would inevitably move on to somewhere safer, somewhere she could build a new life. He should not let himself imagine anything more, but he was imagining it anyway. He imagined her staying, becoming a permanent part of the farm and his life. He imagined working beside her every day, sharing meals and conversation and the quiet companionship they had developed. He imagined, in his most unguarded moments, what it might be like to kiss her, to hold her, to promise her the safety and freedom she craved. He was in trouble, and he knew it. 2 weeks after Keira had emerged from the barn, Zane was working in the fields when he heard the sound of horses on the road. It was unusual enough to make him pause, and when he looked up, he saw 3 riders approaching the farm. They were too far away to make out details, but something about the way they moved made his old instincts flare to life. These were not neighbors coming to visit. He whistled sharply, a pattern he had taught Keira over the past few days as a warning signal. He saw her head pop up from the garden, and he gestured urgently toward the house. She dropped her tools and ran, disappearing inside just as the riders turned onto his property. Zane grabbed his hoe and walked calmly toward the house, trying to look like a man who had simply finished his work for the day. By the time he reached the yard, the riders had stopped, and he was able to see them clearly. 2 were human, rough-looking men with the air of hired muscle. The third was an orc, massive and scarred, with tusks that had been decorated with carved patterns and eyes that held cold calculation. He dismounted with the ease of a practiced warrior and looked around the farm with undisguised contempt. "You are Zane Foster?" the orc asked. His voice was deep and carried the weight of command. "I am." Zane kept his stance relaxed but ready. "What can I do for you?" "I am looking for someone. An orc woman. She is young, with black hair and amber eyes. She has been missing for several weeks, and we have tracked her to this area." The orc's gaze was sharp. "Have you seen anyone matching that description?" "No," Zane lied smoothly. "I live alone here. I have not seen any travelers, orc or human, in weeks." The orc studied him for a long moment. "You are certain? There would be a reward for information leading to her recovery." "I am certain. This farm is isolated. If someone had passed through, I would have noticed." Zane met the orc's eyes steadily. "Who is this woman? Why are you looking for her?" "She is my betrothed. She was taken from her village before our wedding, and her family has hired me to bring her back." The orc's expression was hard. "She is not well. Her mind is unstable. We fear she may hurt herself or others if she is not returned to proper care." Zane felt fury rise in his chest but kept his face neutral. "That sounds concerning. I hope you find her safely. If you do see her, you should know that she is dangerous. She has already injured several people in her flight. Do not try to approach her alone. Send word immediately." The orc remounted his horse. "We will be searching the valley. If I find that you have lied to me, there will be consequences." "I have not lied to you. I have seen no one." Zane kept his voice level. "But I will keep watch and send word if that changes." The riders left, but Zane noted that they moved slowly, looking around carefully as they went. He waited until they were out of sight before returning to the house. He found Keira pressed against the wall beside the window, her face pale and her hands shaking. "That was Garak," she whispered. "That was him. He is here." Zane pulled the curtains closed and locked the door. "I know, but he did not search the house and he did not see you. We are safe for now." "You do not understand. He will search every building in the valley. He will bribe or threaten people until someone tells him what they know. He will not give up." Keira's breathing was coming fast and shallow. "I have to leave. I have to run again." "No." Zane moved to stand in front of her, his hands on her shoulders. "You are not running anymore. We are going to figure this out." "How?" "You heard what he said. He is not going to stop looking, and when he finds me, he will kill you for hiding me." Tears were streaming down her face. "I cannot let that happen. I cannot let you die because of me. He is not going to find you, and no one is going to die." Zane's mind was racing, calculating options. "Listen to me. That story he told about you being unstable and dangerous. That is a lie designed to make people afraid of you, to make them think turning you in is a public service. But I know you. I know the truth, and I am not going to let him take you. You cannot stop him. He is a trained warrior. He has killed dozens of men in battle. I was a scout on the border for 5 years. I am not helpless." Zane pulled her into an embrace, feeling her trembling against him. "I will protect you, Keira, I promise." She clung to him, her face buried in his chest. "Why? Why would you risk your life for me?" "Because I am falling in love with you," Zane thought but did not say. Instead, he said, "Because it is the right thing to do, because you deserve to be free, because I care what happens to you." Keira pulled back just enough to look up at him. "I care what happens to you too, more than I should. More than is wise." The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with unspoken feelings. Zane found himself staring at her mouth, at the way her lips were parted slightly, and he wanted nothing more than to close the distance between them. But he forced himself to step back, to give her space. "We should make a plan," he said, his voice rough. "Garak will come back. He will want to search the property. We need to be ready." Keira nodded, wiping her eyes. "What do we do?" They spent the rest of the evening preparing. Zane showed Keira the cellar beneath the house, a small space used for storing preserves and root vegetables. It had a hidden panel that led to an even smaller space, barely large enough for a person to hide, that his father had built years ago during a time when bandits had roamed the valley. Keira practiced getting in and out quickly, and Zane made sure there was water and a blanket inside in case she needed to stay there for an extended period. They also talked through stories, making sure their accounts would match if Zane was questioned more thoroughly. Keira had never been there. Zane had been alone on the farm since his return from the border. He had seen no travelers, no strangers, nothing unusual. That night, Keira did not go to her own room. Instead, she stayed downstairs with Zane, both of them too on edge to sleep. They sat by the fire, speaking in low voices, and Keira told him stories about her childhood to distract them both from the fear that hung over the farmhouse. "When I was 7, I climbed the tallest tree in our village," she said. "I wanted to see over the mountains, to know what was on the other side. I got stuck halfway down and my brother had to rescue me. He was furious, but he also told me he understood the wanting. He said some people were meant to stay in one place and others were meant to see the world. He thought I was the second kind. He sounds like a good brother. He was the best. When he died, I thought I would die too. The grief was like a physical weight. Keira stared into the fire, but I survived, and I kept surviving. And now here I am, still trying to see what is on the other side of the mountain. You will get there, Zane said softly. I will make sure of it. She looked at him with an expression he could not quite read. You should not make promises you cannot keep. I never do. 3 days passed in tense watchfulness. Zane continued to work the farm, but he was always aware of the surrounding area, always listening for the sound of approaching horses. Keira stayed inside during the day and practiced her retreat to the hidden cellar until she could disappear in seconds. They did not speak much about what would happen after the danger passed, but the unspoken question hung between them. On the 4th day, Garak returned. This time he came alone, and he did not bother with pleasantries. I want to search your property, he said as soon as he dismounted. I have received word that someone matching my betrothed's description was seen near this area. I believe you are hiding her. Zane leaned against the paddock fence, projecting calm. You are welcome to search, but as I told you before, I am alone here. You will find nothing. Garak moved toward the barn, and Zane followed, making sure to stay visible but not obstructive. The orc searched methodically, checking every stall and climbing into the loft. Zane watched him examine the very spot where Keira had hidden for a week, and he felt a grim satisfaction that there was nothing left to find. When the barn yielded no results, Garak moved to the other outbuildings, then finally to the house. Zane let him in, watching as he walked through each room, opened each closet, looked under each bed. The orc was thorough, but he found nothing. The cellar door was well concealed, and Garak did not know to look for it. Finally, the orc stood in the center of the main room, his expression frustrated. You are very calm for a man whose home is being invaded. I have nothing to hide. Search as long as you like. Garak stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. If I find out you have lied to me, I will burn this farm to the ground. I will make sure you regret ever drawing breath. Zane did not flinch. I have not lied to you. Your betrothed is not here. Perhaps she is farther away than you think. Perhaps she does not want to be found. She does not know what she wants. She is a foolish girl who has been corrupted by ideas above her station. Garak's lip curled. When I find her, I will teach her the error of her ways. If you find her, Zane said quietly, I hope she runs again. Because any woman deserves better than a man who speaks of her like that. For a moment he thought Garak might attack him. The orc's hand moved to the knife at his belt, and his eyes blazed with fury. But then, with visible effort, Garak controlled himself. You are a fool, he said. And you will regret your insolence. He left, mounting his horse and riding away without looking back. Zane waited a full hour before going to the cellar and opening the hidden panel. Keira emerged, cramped and pale, and fell into his arms. He was right above me, she whispered. I heard his footsteps. I thought he would find the panel. He did not. You are safe. Zane held her tightly. He is gone. He will come back. He will keep looking. Then we will keep hiding you. Zane pulled back to look at her. Or we will find another solution, but we are not giving up. Keira touched his face, her hand trembling. You could have let him take me. It would have been easier, safer for you. I told you, I protect the people I care about. Zane turned his head and kissed her palm. And I care about you, Keira, more than I probably should. I care about you too. Her voice was barely a whisper. I think I am falling in love with you, and it terrifies me. Zane's heart stuttered. Why does it terrify you? Because I do not know if we have a future. Because loving you makes me vulnerable. Because if something happens to you because of me, I will not survive it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I have lost so much already. I cannot lose you too. You are not going to lose me. Zane cupped her face in his hands, wiping away tears with his thumbs. We are going to figure this out. Together. How can this possibly work? You are human, I am an orc. Even if we survive Garak, where do we go? What do we do? Your people will not accept me. My people will not accept you. We would be outcasts everywhere. Then we will be outcasts here, on this farm. Together. Zane leaned his forehead against hers. I know it is not perfect. I know there will be challenges. But I have lived alone for 3 years, and it has been empty and quiet and safe. And then you came into my life, and suddenly everything felt different, felt possible. I do not want to go back to the emptiness. Keira's breath caught. You really mean that? I really mean that. Zane pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. I love you, Keira. I know it is fast, and I know the circumstances are complicated, but it is true. I love your strength and your courage and your stubborn refusal to accept a life you do not want. I love the way you have thrown yourself into learning everything about the farm. I love the way you hum when you cook, and the way you fall asleep reading in the chair by the fire. I love you, and I want you to stay. I love you too. The words came out in a rush, as if she had been holding them back for too long. I have loved you since you left me that first note saying I was safe, since you trusted me before you had any reason to. Since you looked at me and saw a person instead of a monster. Zane kissed her then, softly at first and then with growing intensity. She kissed him back with a desperation that spoke of all the fear and longing and hope she had been carrying. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Zane rested his forehead against hers again. We will find a way, he promised. I do not know how yet, but we will find a way to be together. Together, Keira repeated as if testing the word. I like the sound of that. They spent the rest of the evening making plans. Zane suggested they could travel to the coast, where his sister lived, and where the communities were more diverse and accepting of mixed relationships. Keira worried about leaving the farm unattended, about abandoning the life Zane had built. They debated and discussed, and eventually agreed to wait, until they knew for certain that Garak had moved on before making any major decisions. In the meantime, they would continue as they had been, but with the new knowledge of their feelings openly acknowledged. It made everything both easier and harder. Easier because they no longer had to hide their affection, harder because the uncertainty of the future loomed larger. That night, Keira stayed in Zane's room. They lay together in the narrow bed, wrapped in each other's arms, and talked until the early hours of the morning. Zane told her about his dreams for the farm, about wanting to expand the orchards and maybe raise sheep. Keira told him about wanting to learn to read more complex books, about wanting to see the ocean. They shared hopes and fears and small intimacies, building a foundation of understanding. The next 2 weeks were the happiest Zane could remember. Despite the threat that still hung over them, despite the knowledge that Garak could return at any moment, he felt more alive than he had in years. He and Keira worked side by side during the day, and in the evenings they cooked together, read together, and planned a future that seemed both impossible and inevitable. Keira bloomed under the attention and safety. She gained weight, her skin took on a healthier glow, and her laughter became common instead of rare. She proved to be an excellent farmer, with an intuitive understanding of the land and the seasons. She also proved to be stubborn and opinionated and quick-tempered, and Zane loved her all the more for it. They did not discuss marriage, but it hung in the air between them, unspoken but understood. In a perfect world, they would have married and lived out their lives on the farm, raising children and growing old together. But the world was not perfect, and they both knew it. The illusion of peace shattered on a hot day in late spring. Zane was repairing a section of fence when he heard Keira scream. He dropped his tools and ran toward the sound, his heart in his throat. He found her in the yard, backed against the barn wall with Garak standing over her. The orc had blood on his knuckles and a look of vicious satisfaction on his face. "I knew you were here. I knew that human was lying." He grabbed Keira's arm, his grip bruising. "You are coming with me now. Let her go." Zane's voice was cold and deadly. He had left his weapons in the house, but he moved into a fighting stance, ready to use his hands if necessary. Garak laughed. "You think you can stop me, little human? You think you can take what is mine and suffer no consequences? She is not yours. She is her own person, and she has chosen not to marry you. Accept it and leave." Zane took a step forward. "Last chance. Let her go, or what? You will fight me." Garak shoved Keira aside, sending her sprawling, and turned to face Zane fully. "I am going to enjoy breaking you." The orc charged, and Zane barely had time to dodge. Garak was fast for his size, trained and experienced, and his first punch caught Zane in the ribs hard enough to crack bone. Zane gasped but stayed on his feet, using his smaller size and agility to stay out of reach of the heavier blows. He could not win this fight with strength. He knew that. But he had not survived 5 years on the border by fighting fair. He ducked under another swing and drove his fist into Garak's throat, targeting the vulnerable spots he had learned in combat. The orc choked and staggered back, and Zane pressed his advantage, landing a kick to the knee that made Garak buckle. But Garak was tough, and he recovered quickly. He grabbed Zane by the shirt and lifted him off the ground, slamming him into the barn wall. Zane's vision went white with pain, and he felt something in his shoulder give way. Garak drew back his fist for a finishing blow, and then Keira hit him with a shovel. The heavy tool connected with the back of Garak's head with a sickening crack, and the orc dropped Zane and spun around, blood pouring down his neck. Keira stood there, the shovel raised for another strike, her face a mask of fury and fear. "You will not hurt him," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "You will not touch him again." Garak snarled and lunged for her, but Zane grabbed his leg and pulled, sending the orc crashing to the ground. Keira brought the shovel down again, this time on Garak's arm, and there was a snap that suggested broken bone. Garak howled in pain and tried to get up, but Zane was on him, using every dirty trick he had learned to keep the larger fighter down. It was brutal and ugly and desperate, but eventually, Garak stopped moving. He was not dead, but he was unconscious, and both Zane and Keira stood over him, breathing hard and shaking with adrenaline. "We have to tie him up," Zane gasped, clutching his injured shoulder, "before he wakes." They dragged Garak into the barn and bound him with rope, making sure the knots were tight and secure. Then they stood back and looked at each other, both splattered with blood and dirt. "What do we do now?" Keira asked. "Now we make a choice." Zane winced as he tried to move his shoulder. "We can turn him over to the local authorities and hope they believe our story. But that means revealing that you have been here, and it opens us up to questions and scrutiny. Or we can let him go and hope he leaves us alone. He will not leave us alone. You know that. He will come back with more men, and next time we might not be so lucky." Keira looked down at the unconscious orc. "There is a third option." "What?" "We go to my clan. We go to my mother and we tell her everything. We let her judge the situation." Keira's voice was steady. "She is the eldest of the clan council. She has authority. If we can convince her that I was right to run, that Garak is dangerous, she might be able to call off the hunt and dissolve the betrothal. That is a huge risk. What if she sides with your father? What if she hands you over to Garak?" Zane shook his head. "I do not want to lose you. You will not lose me, but we cannot keep running forever. We cannot spend our lives looking over our shoulders." Keira took his hand. "I want a future with you, Zane. A real future. And the only way to have that is to confront this head-on." Zane looked at her, this woman who had stumbled into his life terrified and desperate and who had become the center of his world. She was right. They could not build a life together on a foundation of fear and hiding. "All right," he said. "We go to your clan, together." They left Garak tied up in the barn with a note explaining where they had gone and why. Zane wrote a second note to his neighbor, asking him to check on the farm and deal with the situation in the barn. Then they packed supplies and set out on horseback, heading north into the mountains. The journey took 3 days. Zane's shoulder throbbed with every step, but he refused to slow down. Keira led the way, navigating through forests and mountain passes with the confidence of someone who had grown up in this terrain. She told him what to expect when they arrived, warned him that some of the clan members might be hostile, and made him promise that he would let her do most of the talking. When they finally reached the village, it was smaller than Zane had expected, a cluster of sturdy buildings built into the side of a mountain. Orcs stopped what they were doing to stare as they approached, and Zane could feel the weight of their gazes, the suspicion and surprise. Keira dismounted and walked straight to the largest building, which she identified as the council hall. Zane followed, his hand on the knife at his belt, ready to defend her if necessary. Inside, the council was in session. 5 older orcs sat at a long table, and at the center was a woman who could only be Keira's mother. She had the same amber eyes, the same strong features, though her face was lined with age and her hair was streaked with gray. When she saw Keira, her expression went through a rapid series of changes: shock, relief, anger, and finally something that looked like pride. "Keira," she said, her voice echoing in the hall, "you have come home." "I have come to speak to the council, Mother." Keira stepped forward, pulling Zane with her. "I have come to explain why I ran and to ask for your judgment. You ran from an honorable marriage. You brought shame to this clan. What is there to explain?" This came from another council member, a large orc with scars across his face. "It was not an honorable marriage. Garak is cruel and violent. He would have beaten me, controlled me, destroyed me. I ran to save my life." Keira's voice was clear and strong. "And I found safety with this man, Zane Foster. He is human, yes, but he has shown me more kindness and respect than any orc I have known. He protected me when Garak hunted me. He fought for me. He loves me." A murmur ran through the council. Keira's mother leaned forward. "You bring a human to our village and claim he loves you. You know what this means. You know the laws." "I know the laws say that interspecies relationships are forbidden. I know the laws say I should have married the man chosen for me, but I also know that laws can be wrong." Keira lifted her chin. "I love him, Mother, and I will not apologize for it." Keira's mother studied them both for a long moment. Then she stood. "Everyone out. I will speak to my daughter alone." The other council members filed out and Zane made to follow, but Keira's mother shook her head. "You stay, human. This concerns you as well." When the hall was empty, Keira's mother came around the table and approached them. Up close, Zane could see the toll that the past weeks had taken on her, the worry and fear etched into her face. "I received your letter," she said to Keira. "I read it 100 times. I understood why you ran. I did not agree with the marriage, but your father and the council overruled me. They said the alliance was more important than your happiness. Then you believe me." Keira's voice was small, hopeful. "I believe you. I also believe that Garak is dangerous. I have heard stories from other villages, stories of women who married into his clan and were never seen again." She looked at Zane. "And you fought him to protect my daughter." "I did." "Why, what is she to you?" "Everything." Zane met her gaze steadily. "I love her. I want to spend my life with her. I want to marry her if she will have me and if you will allow it." Keira's mother was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You know what you are asking is impossible. The clan will never accept a human as one of ours." Your people will never accept an orc as one of theirs. You will be cast out, both of you. I know. Zane took Keira's hand, but I would rather be cast out with her than accepted without her. And you, Keira's mother looked at her daughter, you would give up everything. Your family, your clan, your people, I have already given them up. Keira's voice was steady. When I ran, I knew I might never see you again. I knew I might spend the rest of my life as an outcast, but I also knew I could not live as Garak's wife. I could not survive that. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. You are so much braver than I ever was. I wanted to run when I was young. I wanted to see the world, to make my own choices. But I did not. I stayed and I married and I had children and I told myself it was enough. But it was not enough. I was not happy. And I did not want that for you. Then help us, Keira pleaded. Help us find a way to be together. Her mother wiped her eyes. I cannot give you my blessing here. The council will not allow it, but I can give you something else. She went to a chest in the corner and pulled out a small pouch. This is money, enough to start a new life somewhere far from here, and this. She held up a carved stone pendant. This is a symbol of the clan. If you ever need help, if you ever find others of our people, show them this and tell them you are under my protection. Mother. Keira's voice broke. Go. Go far away where no one knows you, where you can build a life together without fear. Find happiness, my daughter. That is all I ever wanted for you. She embraced Keira fiercely, and then, to Zane's surprise, she embraced him as well. Take care of her, keep her safe, make her happy. I will, Zane promised. I swear it. They left the village under the cover of darkness, guided by Keira's mother to a hidden path that would take them down the mountain without being seen. As they rode away, Keira looked back once, tears streaming down her face, and then she turned forward and did not look back again. They rode south, back to the farm, and found Garak gone and the neighbor dealing with the aftermath as requested. Zane explained a version of the truth, that there had been an altercation with an intruder, and that everything was handled now. The neighbor accepted this with the stoicism of someone who had seen enough of the world to know better than to ask too many questions. Zane and Keira spent 2 weeks recovering and preparing. Zane's shoulder healed slowly, and Keira helped him with the heavier work. They sold some of the livestock, stored what they could, and made arrangements for the neighbor to look after the property in their absence. Are you sure about this? Keira asked on their last night at the farm. You are giving up your home, your life here, for me. I am not giving up anything. I am choosing something better. Zane pulled her close. This place will still be here if we want to come back, but right now I want to see what else is out there. With you? Where will we go? The coast, I think. My sister is there and she will welcome us. We can find work, build a new life, maybe buy a small farm by the sea, he smiled. You said you wanted to see the ocean. I do. Keira rested her head on his shoulder. I want to see everything. With you. They married the next morning in a small ceremony with only the neighbor as witness. It was not legal by any official standard, since interspecies marriages were not recognized by human or orc law. But it was real to them, and that was all that mattered. They exchanged vows under the open sky, promising to love and protect each other for the rest of their lives. Then they packed their belongings onto 2 horses and set out west toward the coast. The journey would take weeks, but they were in no hurry. They traveled slowly, stopping in small villages and towns, sometimes revealing that Keira was an orc, and sometimes allowing people to assume she was simply a tall, strong human with unusual coloring. They learned which communities were accepting and which were hostile, and they adjusted their route accordingly. Along the way, they met others like them, mixed couples who had chosen love over tradition, outcasts who had built new lives on the margins of society. They found acceptance in unexpected places and kindness from strangers. They also found hardship and prejudice, but they faced it together, and that made all the difference. When they finally reached the coast, the sight of the endless blue ocean took Keira's breath away. She stood on the beach, her hand in Zane's, and stared at the waves with wonder. "It is bigger than I imagined," she said softly. "More beautiful." "Everything worth having usually is," Zane replied. They found Zane's sister living in a small coastal town with her husband and 2 children. She welcomed them with open arms, asking no questions about Keira's origins and simply accepting her as family. With her help, Zane and Keira found a small piece of land on the outskirts of town, close enough to the sea to hear the waves but far enough inland to have good soil for farming. They built a house together, planting roots in literal and metaphorical ways. Zane taught Keira about human customs, and Keira taught Zane about orc traditions, and together they created something new, a blend of both cultures that was entirely their own. In the spring, Keira discovered she was pregnant. The news filled them both with joy and terror in equal measure, unsure of what it would mean to raise a half-human, half-orc child in a world that did not always accept difference. But when their daughter was born, tiny and perfect with her father's eyes and her mother's green-tinted skin, they knew they would do whatever it took to give her a better world than the one they had inherited. They named her Mara, which meant sea in the orc tongue, and raised her with love and stories about where she came from and what her existence represented. She grew up strong and curious, accepted by the community that had welcomed her parents, and she never knew what it was like to be told she should not exist. Years passed. Zane's hair turned gray, and Keira's tusks grew longer with age. They added more children to their family, each one a bridge between 2 worlds. They expanded their farm, taught their children to read and write and tend the land. They hosted gatherings for other mixed families, creating a network of support and friendship. On their 20th anniversary, they stood on the beach where Keira had first seen the ocean. Their children were playing in the waves, and the sun was setting over the water, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You ever regret it?" Keira asked. "Giving up your old life?" "Becoming an outcast," Zane put his arm around her waist and pulled her close. "Never, not for a single moment. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I hid in your barn and ate all your food," he laughed. "Especially because of that. If you had not been desperate enough to hide in my barn, I never would have found you. We never would have had this life." Keira leaned her head on his shoulder, watching their children splash in the waves. "I used to think freedom meant being alone, being able to go wherever I wanted without anyone to answer to. But I was wrong. Freedom is this: choosing who you love and building a life with them, having a family that accepts you for who you are, belonging somewhere by choice rather than by obligation." "You are a wise woman, Keira Foster. I learned from a wise man." She turned to kiss him, soft and sweet, and he held her as the sun dipped below the horizon. They had been outcasts and refugees, a runaway bride and the farmer who had hidden her. They had faced danger and prejudice and uncertainty. But they had also found love and built a family and created a home where none had existed before. And in the end, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.